Yeah.
But then I was having a conversation with I don't know who, I think it was a friend guy, and I was explaining to them that we as women have lowered the bar, so they do have options. If you don't want to put it out, somebody else will.
Yeah. I mean, and I'm telling you what's so bad about childhood trauma is that a lot of time when you're introduced to it, that's what you want. And so you don't care if the girl is nice. You know, you might realize she's a wife material, but once you open that door, like it's Pandora's box, is that I just want sex. It don't, even though I like you, even though I think you cool, you know what I'm saying? This girl over here is having sex. You know, you know what I'm saying? So, and that's just the reality of it. You know what I'm saying? Of that happened. Is that right? Is that good? I can't say it is, but I'm saying, but the reality is that that's what happens, especially if I've been introduced. Now, if I haven't been introduced, it's different, but a lot of times people aren't. And that trauma like that, it has a lot to do with it. And even if you bring it back to what you call it. Now, I'm not saying even if it's not sexual, even if you put it on another perspective, I mean, my mom and dad divorced, right? And my dad is not there. I want love from a man, right? And so in order for this guy to say he loved me, I got to sleep with him. You know what I'm saying? So in order for me to sleep with him and to feel this comfort, I had this guy one time, and guy, he was he was in his homosexual relationship, but he was saying when he was growing up, he said his grandma was he would always sleep with his grandma. So he always had a need for somebody to be in his bed. So even though he would get in this relationship and he was getting cheated on, the guy was messing around, doing all this other stuff like that, he said, but he still, he was hard for him to not have somebody in his bed. So even though a lot of times he didn't want to be in a physical relationship with somebody, he would just because he wanted somebody in his bed.
He didn't like to be alone. I
was like, and there's people like that. You know, I was like that. I didn't like to be alone. My brother told me one time, he was like, hey man, dude, you learn used to be alone. You in relationships, you just don't like being by yourself.
But that back to your childhood, if you were not just sexual abuse, and you think about verbal abuse, you think about physical abuse, you think about neglect, you think about being abandoned, those type of things will mess with your psyche as well, to where you don't like to be alone, or where you have a very pessimistic attitude about yourself. And I know, once again, from a woman's perspective, if you're so used to, it's a saying that women, they love their sons, but they raise their daughters. Meaning the mother, when it comes to their daughter, I'm just trying to teach you how to survive out here. But when it comes to my son, I love my son. You know, that's my baby boy, and I'm going to take care of him. And then when a woman becomes an adult, she don't have self-love for herself. She's just trying to get it wherever she can get it from. And sometimes it be in abusive relationships. Like we were talking about sex, you know, having hypersexuality. But yeah.
Surviving too, you know, they're surviving. And a lot of black women, a lot of times they had to survive. And if this was the guy that owned, you know, who was the breadwinner, you know what I'm saying? I had to and so I put myself in the situation. I had a client one time and he was telling me that his kids were, he said he didn't like his girlfriend. You know, he didn't like how she was. Real spoiled, and he didn't want to be with her, but he said, I don't want to be a baby's dad and to be around and not be able to raise my kid. He said, I don't know what I need to do. I said, you know, I told him, I said, women do it all the time, man. I said, you either gonna have to stick with her and be and deal with her stuff and raise your kid, or you're gonna have to be a I said, really, it's no third option, man. I said, or you're gonna have to be a drop-in dad. I said, women have that, you know, do it all the time, man. They stick with women. I said, so I'm not trying to be funny. I just said, it's just true. It's just the reality. If you want to, you know, we kind of like glass over that because it happens so regular a lot of times. But a lot of times people are there because of security. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times because, hey, I know this person has a job. Yes, this person is detrimental or whatever. And the thing about it is that the kids grew up in that household. And to that point where that's normal. You know, we normalize so many different things. And it's not about, counseling is not about saying, hey, this is right or this is wrong. Even when you're talking about the sexuality part, it's not about what's right or wrong. It's just, if this is what you decide your normal to be. Yeah, or you know, or normal, and just being able to have an understanding or awareness, because sometimes it's just, hey, this is just who I have became. And we don't realize people become because, you know, what has happened in their life, what has transpired. You know?
And then counseling to me is like, when you get counseling or therapy, you can use the words interchangeably. It's just maturing. Like you're just becoming a better person, a better version of yourself. Because for me, I'm a big fan of self-talk, you know, positive self-talk. Because, you know, you have those negative thoughts, and you just got to combat those things with positive self-talk, but sometimes you need a licensed professional counselor to get you to that point.
Yeah. Well, because there's so many different things that you're battling for. You watch, and one of the reasons I came on this thing too is because I was just watching so many things on TV because everybody is on TV, and a lot of times they just got opinion, and it's so wrong. Things that people are just saying and they just doing because they have some right things. So they have some right things, but a lot of times they don't realize they're just making a mess of their life. I remember watching this thing, like I said, I don't like to talk about celebrities, but I remember it was this thing, I think it was Gabrielle Union was on there talking about, and she was telling, girls, they need to have as many sex as they can. They got God gave, not God, she said they have a thing on their body and they need to use it and experience as many different men and different kind of ways that they can. I was like, that is trash, man.
That's bad.
That is and you're talking about you introducing all these different people into your body and all these different things like that, and that's okay. And I was like, man, that is such a bad thing.
Because for me, when you're sleeping with somebody, that's spiritual.
Yeah.
You're making a connection with someone, and whatever they got now, you have it. And I'm not just talking about STDs.
Right.
I'm talking about
that's no spiritually.
Right, whatever spirits you, and he been with multiple women, that person been with multiple people, and now you just a ball of.
Yeah. She said, hey, you supposed to at a certain time, you supposed to, and I remember, and I tell you what's a big thing now. I mean, hearing people like, hey, this is my whole phase thing. And I was like, where did they get? I had a lady, and she's married,
to say that.
and she was telling me, hey, I'm just gotta, I'm gonna go with my whole phase. I never had a whole phase. I was like, well, why would you want that phase in your life?
But it goes back to not loving yourself.
Yeah.
You have no love and respect for yourself when you are willing to lie down with multiple men and have no regret. And you're wearing that as some type of honor. Oh, I went through my whole thing.
And I deserved it. I deserved to have that. And I remember one time I had a guy that was staying out there when I was managing a mobile home park, when he was like, he had been with this lady for like 17 years. They had bought a house together. They had all these things like that. He's like, I ain't finna get married. Got multiple kids. He's like, I ain't finna get married yet. He's like, I'm still waiting on that free train. I was like, dude, you weigh 400 pounds, bro. She's with you all this together and you still wait. I said, the train is not coming. It's not coming, man. The free train is not coming for you, bro. I said, you wait. I said, man, y'all got, I said, dude, who signed on the house? I said, y'all, but it's that mentality. Same thing, with some guys. I was like, man, you're still waiting on this train and this thing that does not exist. They don't even have a depot in Vicksburg, man. There's no train depot here. You know what I'm saying? And people kind of get caught up in these different things. But the thing about it, I didn't derail them. I was just like, but just the mentality sometimes that we have. But if you have never told a person that that's, hey man, you ever thought that that's kind of wild? Or that's kind of interesting that you would think that that's okay. A lot of times people don't know that because a lot of times people just agree with us. They don't just say, hey man, that's different, or give you a different perspective on that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. A lot of times it's just, like I said, it is childhood, because guess what? When I grew up, my cousin would say, hey, Warren, you ain't got none yet. You supposed to. They thought that that's just a rite of passage. Every man's supposed
it's like there to be different.
Yeah.
But you're growing up, and like you said, I mean, I've had students that's in my office be like, oh, I was being a hoe that night. I'm just like,
oh, yeah.
You don't want to wear that title. That's not positive.
It's a different title now. Different now. Things that used to be, bad are considered good, and so it's just different. And like I said, a lot of that has to do with. And I always remember this conversation, and I remember, and I think I talked about it on before. I remember when I think you were doing it, day treatment as well, or no, not day treatment. Day treatment. And I think it was during the summertime, and I had some girl. It was a girl and it was a little guy, and they was having a conversation. They was unaware that I was listening. And the little girl said, no, the little boy said, he said, when you grow up, you want to be a baby's mama. He said, do you want to be a wife? And the little girl sat there and she turned her head to the side and she said, I think I want to be a baby's mama.
Wow. He's
like, cool. He said, cause I'm gonna love my kids, man. He said, but I ain't no love no girls. He said the other word, hoes. I ain't no love no. And I just looked and I was like, man. I didn't say anything because it wasn't my conversation. I was like, but that's the reality, is the fact that this is what he's seen. His brother has got up to a point where he realized that he needs to take care of his kids. He needs to love his kids, but he don't love no woman.
And you got to remember, he's a young man saying.
Very young now. Very young.
He's going to grow up to be an adult. And like I say, he's going to be out in the wild with that same mentality.
And the girl too. She thought. She was like, but if all you know is baby's mama, that's what she's going to feel. It's the same way. If all I ever known is that, everybody just kind of live in a certain kind of neighborhood and they live in a certain kind of way, and this is what they do, I'd have no idea. It's like when we was going to school and we didn't know nothing about LPC until we went somewhere else. But if the highest thing is just getting your master's, then we don't worry that it's something beyond that. And a lot of times we don't know it's something beyond that. That I can be in a marriage and be happy. I can be in a relationship and the person respect me. I can be in a relationship and there wasn't no fighting or wasn't no stuff like that.
It's possible.
It's possible. So if I haven't seen that, I haven't experienced that, then that's what I know. And a lot of times we just expect people to know that, but a lot of times we don't know that. I can be in a love. Yeah, you can talk about it. Hey, we can talk about things that have affected us and not be weak. And that's another that come without stigma. In the South is that we don't talk about our personal business.
Therapy amongst Black people is a stigma like this. Like, but I do think it's getting better to a point. But I do like what you're doing here because you're bringing this type of food to the table. Yeah. As far as like you can get help. Yeah. You can work through it. Mm-hmm.
It can be different. You know, we can have something different if we decide we want it. Yeah.
But you know, and I've heard people say, well, my granddaddy was an alcoholic. My daddy was an alcoholic. What you think I'm going to be? And I mean, they accept it. Yeah.
Because they think that's their lot in life. It's predetermined. And they think that that's how it is. You know, my mom and dad divorced. Everybody got divorced. I said, but why you have it's still a choice. You know what I'm saying? Or I had a bad relationship. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you can have a good one. You know, you have to decide what you're going to do and move forward. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of times we don't. We just kind of like accept our lot in life. Don't see anything different because we've been anywhere different. You know, so that's a lot of times when we're in the same place all the time that we haven't seen anything different. I remember when I went to basic training, that's one of the things I learned from that is just, hey, because when I was in high school, I thought that was the only world was just that little circle of that school. And then I went to basic training like in my 11th year. I was like, man, the world is so much different.
It's so much bigger.
Different
kinds of people.
Yeah, to believe in different kind of things and like. I mean, we went somewhere and people were saying stuff. I was like, we don't talk to all those different people. You know, different kind of the nationalities were talking to me. I was like, you know, in the South they don't
blinking.
They don't talk and blink and do that stuff. And hey, I would look and see who they was talking to. But it shows you that the world is different. You don't have to live in that perspective. You don't have to live in your trauma. You don't have to live in your, you know, saying your addiction. You don't have to live and not know about mental health because a lot of times we don't know about depression and anxiety. We just think that's part of life, or we don't grieve.
Because for a long time, before I even got into counseling, I didn't know what anxiety was. And I suffered from it for a long time. I stayed in a fight or flight? Yeah. I stayed in a tense position all the time. And it was a result of being in an environment where I didn't know when a certain person was going to pop off. Wow. So I stayed like this all the time. And imagine being like this all the time. And you think of like one symptom is like, I was easily to be startled. Like if it's real quiet and you step in the room, that's because I'm constantly
thinking someone has.
My heart is beating fast. I'm on the fence. I'm nervous, but that's just, it was real. I'm telling you.
Real.
It's real. It's really, really real. And then when you think about drug use, that's when people try to self-medicate. You know this. Yeah. You know, people, they use marijuana to chill out. Yeah. It is a downer. Yeah. But yeah.
But then a lot of times, you know, we talk about the co-occurring, like you taught in, is that a lot of times is, you know, we're escaping, we're numbing ourselves too. Right. And so we don't realize what we're numbing ourselves from. And I was talking to a guy one time, he was talking about it. He's like, yeah, I said, because you hadn't dealt with the underlying thing. You know, you got to deal with the underlying thing. Why do you feel like you need to, you know, escape from the world? Why are you escaping? What are you escaping from? I had a guy come in one time and I was asking him a question on the ASAM, which is the assessment tool. You know, actually, you have nightmares every night. Yeah, I have nightmares every night. I'm like, man, you don't supposed to have nightmares every night.
You're supposed to have nightmares.
That's unfinished business. That's something that you got that you haven't dealt with, some fear or some worry or something like that you haven't dealt with. You need to deal with that. And what happened, I think he had somebody, I think one of his brothers had got killed, you know, one of his cousins had got killed or something like that. So it's death. I said, have you dealt with how your mortality? Have you dealt with the fact that, you know, how do you think about death and life and all that stuff like that? And if you haven't dealt with that, that's why it's still there. And so what happened, he was drinking or smoking in order to cover it up because I never thought. But guess what? When I'm driving home and I ain't got nothing to do, guess what happened? Because it timestamp, but guess what happened? That movie started back playing. So now I'm driving, I can't escape. Or I hadn't dealt with grief. I had a truck driver. He hadn't dealt with grief. He said he was good. He said, but then when I'm having a long drive, I just start crying uncontrollably. I'm a black man. I can't tell anybody that I'm crying uncontrollably. But I'm so glad he came and got therapy. But I'm saying, so it's some unfinished business that is coming. And a lot of times we don't learn, especially grief. And I'm telling you, what really got us in grief was COVID. You know, people were like burying multiple people. You know, multiple people were dying. And I'm telling you what's so scary about COVID. And I know we get on this rabbit trail is that, you know, people at home with their abusers. You know what I'm saying? So that was coming up, you know what I'm saying? And mental health stuff, being able to go to the counselors. You know, it set us back a long way. You know what I'm saying? And I remember it was a girl with our old person. She was saying she wanted to do a podcast saying I still have COVID. I was like, man, that's so good because the after effects, same way with slavery, same way with first talking about the crack years, is that it's still there. The effect is there. We don't think, hey, crack years, cool.
It's the result.
But the result, we still living it. You know what I'm saying? You know, our age, we still coming from that.
Even in the education arena.
Yeah.
The effects of COVID is there. You know, they passed on a lot of kids. A lot of kids were not at school. There's a cohort of students that were just passed on. They missed on a lot of their foundation education. And they're just being passed on.
Yeah. And they affect it. So we got so many different things in our community. Like I said, black people, you know, when we grew up, we always had a lot of effect from the civil rights movement. But then the crack stuff was kind of in our thing. And so our kids are getting the effects of what happened to us and how we look at life, how we look at people. And now the new generation has COVID, right? Yeah. My son didn't go to graduation. He didn't go to prom. He didn't go into those things because he was at that time. And those things affect us. And we ain't even dealt with the crack stuff yet. And now we got the COVID stuff, right?
And then we're talking about the effects of COVID. You got to even talk about communication. These kids nowadays, they do not talk verbally.
No.
They will message you.
Yeah. Right where you there. Look
right, yeah.
Yeah, look at
like, we're talking about communicate. We have to learn how to communicate verbally.
But you know what? When I was talking to my son one time, he said, you know what happened? He's like, when they meet a girl, they go right to Tinder. They don't have to worry about that.
Oh, and something else I've learned, they'll ask you, well, what's your social media handle? Like, I'm not going to give you my phone number, but you can get my social media handle.
Ain't that something?
Right. You can look me up.
You can see me in my best, and then guess what it is? It's a filter. It's a filter. It's not even who you really are. You know what I'm saying? So I'm seeing you at your best with your makeup on, when you feeling your bed and you smiling, and then that's not even you.
And we're talking about childhood trauma from our perspective. Yeah. If you think about kids who are growing up in this techno generation, what their childhood trauma is going to look like.
Oh, it's going to be something. It's going to be something. Because guess what? Most of us ain't dealt with our trauma. Most of the parents ain't dealt with their stuff.
You know, I had this conversation with my cousin, and I have come to the realization just because people are married and have kids, they still have not dealt with their childhood trauma. And it's a domino effect. Yes. Now you're raising kids based on your development interruption. Like it's scary.
Yeah. When you think about an older guy, sometimes I'll tell somebody, one time you meet an older guy, all you can teach another person is what you know. So I meet my dad and he's not verbal. All he can say is, don't let that white man gyp you. He don't know nothing else, but don't let that man gyp you. Don't let him gyp you. You know, he don't know, Dad, what I need to do about school or women. I don't know nothing about that, son. Don't let him gyp you, though. That's all he can give you, because all he can give you is what he got. You know what I'm saying? So all I got is the girl. I remember watching who was that Fantasia story. Your mama said you better work and use what you got to get what you want.
Wow.
That's all she was able to tell her. And so that's what she used her life to get what she want. Michael Jackson grew up, telling stories because that's what you did when you was famous. And so I love biographies. I love autobiographies and I love documentaries. And if you watch a person's documentary and the autobiography, I remember watching the thing on Puppy Dad way before it happened. His daddy was a pimp. And people like, his dad was a pimp. He told us, I watched the story. So when your dad is a pimp, Mike Tyson, mama was in jail. She was in the sex game. Jane Brown, mama was prostitutes and stuff like that. And so when they beat their wife or they beat their girlfriend, people be like, oh, I can't believe that. You got to understand what happened, what he grew up seeing. It's not an excuse, but it was just a matter of time. When I watched that stuff with her dad, I was like, have no doubt about that, because I knew his daddy was a pimp. You think a person that walks around strong-arming people, they're not going to see that? Because when you watch, you read, you study counseling, mental health. If you don't do it, it's a hard thing. Just like I have all the tendencies my dad have. I don't do them, but I fight those tendencies because I know they're in me. Like my dad would cut my mom down. He would say stuff to her like that. And I have that tendency. When I get my wife, I can do it, but I never do it. But I hear it in my head. I decide not to do that because just because you have the ability to do something don't mean you do it. And we're still the nature of our parents.
Just because you know better.
Yeah, and I know better, and I choose to do better. You know what I'm saying? But you still have to make a choice every time to do those things. You know what I'm saying? And so it's not about saying that person's bad or that person's good. It's just understand. You think Jane Brown got some therapy? No, he didn't get no therapy.
No, absolutely not.
And people got in the military, and they don't even. I talk to people, and they be like, "Hey, I've been in the military, and this happened. I was like, "Did you get any trauma?" Because I was in the Army, and what happened? If you go to sick call, they looking down at you. So guess what? When you have something happen, you don't supposed to go to sick call. No, you don't go to sick call. They talking about you down there. You better not go to sick call. So guess what? When they did all these things, a bomb. I had a guy that he told me he had to shoot a lady with her child one time because they had like a bomb inside the baby basket. And he was sitting on the line guard between America and this the enemies they were fighting against. And he said if they came up there, and they would come up there with baby baskets because in their culture, that if you die, you're a martyr, and it's a good thing. So she was there with her baby with bombs in the thing, and so he had to make a decision. either to not shoot the child, the lady, or shoot the lady. You know what I'm saying? He's a man. I had to deal with that, and they don't do any counseling on that. You know what I'm saying? So he comes up, he raises a family, got all this stuff in him.
It's a domino effect.
Yeah, and we don't deal with those things. It can affect us, and so that's how we raise our people, because of that adversity. That's because of those things we've been in, and so it's something. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times we don't realize that all that stuff affects us, and we just kind of keep on living, right? Worry about where we're finna go vacation at. We don't realize that, and we don't deal with it, and then what it does, it just kind of it grows, right?
Because I think the greatest responsibility as a parent is raising an emotionally mature child, not just somebody that can go to work, but you can go to work, but then you'll have an addiction problem.
So how do you make them emotionally mature though? How do you do that?
That's a good question.
We can tell them now how we got to know how to do it.
Right. It starts with you.
Yeah.
You have to, and that's a good thing. We're at a time now, we have people like you who putting this thing out here. You have therapy. A lot of these jobs, insurance are offering where you can get mental health if you need it on your job. You have to start with yourself.
Yeah. You learn how to swim, and then you can teach other people how to swim.
Absolutely.
And have a conversation. Yeah.
And having a conversation. But it has to start with yourself. You have to realize something is not right.
Why do I think this way? Or if I'm in multiple relationships, why is it the same thing?
But I didn't understand I had a problem until my pastor explained. Well, I'm going to say problem. I didn't understand the way I was thinking was not right until he kind of brought it to light.
Okay.
And he was like, have you ever heard of, pessimistic? You always thinking bad things and you expect bad things to happen. He was like, that's the type of attitude you have. And when I sat back and I thought about it, I did. But then I began to search where did this come from?
Genesis has started somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Why am I thinking like this?
Yeah.
And I was able to trace it back, but you got to start with yourself, and you need people like you and other professionals, or just a good friend, somebody that could just look at you and speak to you and tell you this is what it is.
When did it start?
Right.
That's why I tell people, I say, everything has a genesis. Everything has a start. So where did it come from? I say, even when you see a person, I say, if a person is angry all the time, we so used to saying, hey, that's just who I am. I was like, man, and especially with, cause I can't talk about the black people that I know because I'm black. I'm gonna say, they always say, well, hey, that's just who I am.
When I hear grown people say that, they just do something to me.
But I always say, but why? Why are you like that? Do you like that? I always hear a guy say, well, man, I'm just a pimp. My daddy was a pimp. My mom was they're a pimp. I said, did you like them though? Oh, I didn't like them. I said, then why would you want to be like somebody that you don't like? You can change it. You can change it. So, what I'm saying? So you got to understand where it came from. Why do I think? And I had to trust that, like I said, with my mom. I had to realize that, hey, I realized that that's how my mom was. And I have this thing about trying to save everybody. You know what I'm saying? False obligation. Because I could not save my mom, I tried to save everybody else.
Wow. And
I realized that I was trying to be everything to everybody, and I got older, and I remember that's something that God dealt with me about, with me having a false obligation, that I'm not obligated to take care of everybody else. And also, if I'm a savior, how can they have a savior?
I had a conversation, and this person had the same thing. You're like, I like helping people. I said, girl, you're not God.
Yeah.
You cannot help you can help yourself.
Yeah. You can't, because you'll wear yourself out.
You will. And they will you will be BF out of them.
Yeah.
They will come and bring all their garbage and put it on you. And now you weighed it down with all that stuff.
You take some, but you teach them, right? Talk and you take it, but hey, we got this going on, but we're going to teach you how to deal with it. I'm going to give you the tools to. I want to hear what you got going on, but are we going to be a victim or are we going to be a victor? You know what I'm saying? So how do we be a victim?
And a lot of people just want to be victims. They just want
to, because people don't let people talk. They don't listen to people. They don't, they just kind of, and that's what I say, therapy ain't nothing else. Let somebody just talk, man. Just sit there and listen to them.
But the good thing about therapy is I'm going to give you some tools.
Yeah. Good therapy will.
Good therapy
going to give you some tools.
I'm going to give you some tools. I'm going to help you try to work through this.
Yeah, so that you can get some help. And it's a need, though. The need is so bad that a lot of times we just don't talk about what's going on with us. You know what I'm saying? And that's because like I said, we got that South. We got that stigma. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to deal with it. We brush it up, and so. But anyway, we ain't got long. But I'm gonna talk to you about the. Do you remember anything about the crack years? I like to say that because that's Curtis's thing, and he's compiled these things because what happened is that we got all these different perspectives. Because a lot of time, and even if you don't know anything, we want to know where that came from. Because what happened is that we got this whole set of between like 1980 and into the early 2000s, where we kind of got this whole disconnect from society. Like what happened at that time. So do you remember anything from? I know you was.
I was born.
You was young. You were young.
I was born in 83.
Yeah. So,
but my mom, she's not ashamed to tell it. She fell victim to it, but she went and got treatment.
Good.
And she tells us all the time she got clean because of her children. That's all I remember.
Do you remember any do you remember like how people were about, because we think about, because I was thinking about, I remember the effects of it, but I don't really remember anybody. I remember people selling drugs. I remember that being cool and we want to say, but I forgot about the fact that, the trauma. You got to imagine like, hey, that caused trauma in somebody's life because their mama wasn't there or their daddy wasn't there.
Absolutely.
Or their uncle was now, everybody was talking about the uncle. Because I remember you said they own that dope. They would never say why. But I didn't know why when certain people came in, that's why they would put stuff up or they would hide stuff. And I remember people snatching people chains and, but I didn't realize that it had that effect. It was, but but we just kind of, and that's what's so wild is that we glossed over this whole thing and nobody talks about it.
I've seen documentaries how neighborhoods were booming, they were thriving.
Yeah.
But then after the crack hit, boarded up, burned down.
Yeah. And so, but we never think about, hey, so if it was burned down, what happened to those people who was in those houses? What happened to those kids that were in those things? You know what I'm saying? Because we know it's like one thing me and Paradise talk about is that when a person is, when they stimulate. So then guess what? Then I got, sexual abuse. I got traumatic abuse. And those kids grow up. And what they're gonna do,
we did. What did you do to get your school your counseling?
Mississippi College. Yeah.
So we had to go and sit in on meetings.
Yeah.
And I was terrified.
For real.
I'm talking. We had to sit in on AA meetings. AA is not just for alcoholics. It's for whatever
AA,
type. Right.
Yeah.
And I remember one lady speaking. She said, "Now that the drugs are out of my system, I'm still hoeing." I'm still right. I'm still tricking. I'm still, backbiting. And that just took me to a whole nother perspective.
Wow. So
when you don't have the drugs in your system, you still dealing with you.
Because you develop some stuff that came from it, don't?
Right.
Because the ghost still there. And the still there is like, people get, delivered from stuff in church. You know what I'm saying? Guess what? You still got to clean up the rat stuff. You got to clean up the
residue.
How I get in there. And if I don't deal with the fact of my triggers, if I'm a person and the need to please people, you know what I'm saying? It's still there.
We need to, that's a whole other thing.
It's a whole different thing. I'm saying, but if I'm a person that need attention or connection, and a lot of times relationship, it's about connection. I was talking to one guy, I said, you can be an introvert and still need connection, man. A connection is still there. If I need connection in my people, my environment, or everybody do drugs, I remember I never cared about smoking cigarettes, nothing like that. I never smoked cigarettes, but when I was in the Army, all my friends smoked cigarettes. So guess what? I tried a cigarette again, and I'm 19 years old and never thought about cigarettes because all my friends smoked. They were smoking all the time. They was doing because it's your environment. If I get in that environment, I would have never tried. That's why I tell married guys, are you married? Why you hanging with all these single guys who out there messing around? Because guess what? You're going to be pulled into that thing.
Slowly but surely.
Eventually you are.
That's the truth.
It's the same way I'm married. I only hang around guys that are married who love their wives. So if you talk about your wife, talking about she's stupid and you don't like that, me and you cool, but we can't be hanging around because I love my wife. She ain't stupid.
You asked the question, how could we fix that as far as raising kids to be, mature emotionally? You got to get in a good environment.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you're going to have to be around some stable parents.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have to change your environment. And they tell you that. People, places, and things. They tell you that.
Yeah. And it's real. That AA got so many good things and there's so many good stuff. It is some good work in the AA. I'm talking about, and people, and every time I went to a meeting, even for class, I always just learned so much stuff. I was like, man, this is some good stuff.
Yeah, I was balling in them.
AA meetings was good. I'm telling you, I like them. AA, Al-Anon. I was like, why is everybody not going to these meetings? And then, what too is the stigma too is that we try to, with addiction, going back on that, is that the family involvement, it's a family disease. It affects your family.
It affects the entire family.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When you have somebody that's struggling with addiction,
yeah,
it affects the entire family.
It does. And if you don't, and a lot of times we just want to dismiss it. We don't want to, but it affects the whole family. We need to know it's a family disease, even though we didn't. It's like an enemy coming in your house. Okay, it's Kamesha enemy. She done said something crazy to somebody. Kamesha talking to him crazy, and they come in and want to fight. But they come to our house. They got a gun. It's the whole family's in the house, and so we got to fight it as a family. You know what I'm saying? And so a lot of time addiction, well, that's Dave's stuff. No, we need to fight it as a family. It's attack one of our members, but we're a family. In order for us to get through it, because the after effects are gonna affect us. You know what I'm saying? Same way with like people who get suicide, we got to deal with that because the after effects affects everybody. You know what I'm saying? So it's real. And so addiction is a real thing. It might have started because they was not, they was being, disobedient, or they was trying to do their thing. I said, but once it becomes a thing where it's an addiction, then we got to deal with it as a family.
And it can become that. That's something I teach the students. It's cool, you smoking your Black and Mild and they smoking their cigarettes, but there's something in it called nicotine that's addictive.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you're going to be at the counter talking about, can I get a pack of Newport Short in the box?
Yeah. Well, anything, any kind of addiction, man. And that's why I tell people, I said, I sit on the drug court, and a lot of times people come in and they want to judge, they like, hey, these guys here, they this and that. And I was like, what you do? You know what I'm saying? I said, you think, how hard you think it's going to be to do? I said, theirs is 10,000 times is addictive. I said, you can't give up sugar. I said, it's hard to give up sugar. I said, if I tell you can't have no more sugar for the rest of your life, I said, so you telling this person and I said, they have a pathway to this feel good chemical, and you think they're gonna be able to get that up? You still struggle. Just like you being married, you're gonna still. I told somebody, you can marry the most beautiful man, most handsome guy in the world. He can have all these different things. You can drive somewhere else, you see the same man, and he got pretty eyes. You're like, wow. Or he's taller. Wow. You're gonna always see something that's different. You're gonna always have temptation, but it's every day. It's a choice to, hey, I got more to lose than to gain. It's a choice. Even oh man, that's people get divorced after 40 years and have an affair after 40 years. I said, so every day it's a choice. Same
you got to be in that wise mind though, to make that right decision.
It's an ongoing thing every day. Same with mental health. It's an ongoing fight. And we think that life is just not going to give us a fight, but it is. Life is a fight, man.
Every day.
And so why not get tools? Why not go to therapy? Why not go and learn different things? Why don't educate ourselves instead of entertain ourselves? Our biggest thing, I think, is with Americans is that we're so caught up in entertainment. You know what I'm saying? More than educating ourselves.
Especially with social media.
Oh yeah, and it's so fake. It's fake.
It's complete fake. Entertainment.
Yeah, and I'm talking about, and I watch myself, but I had to go through periods of fasting from social media.
I need
big time,
because that has interrupted my patience.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so used to watching 10-minute, 5-minute videos, and if something is over 10 minutes, you've lost me.
You're through with it.
I'm just like, I don't have the patience.
That's,
that's not good.
You got to make sure it's because people don't want to sit there and watch nothing long. We don't, and it's sad because it has programmed us to want everything right now.
Really quick.
I want a perfect relationship. I want my body to be perfect today. I want to get my stuff right now. I want to get me a BBL because I want to be fine now. And I was like, you don't even have hips. You can't get fake hips. You know what I'm saying? And I tell people, I said, because I remember telling my son when he wanted to lift weights and be bodybuilder like me, he's like, Dad, how long it take to get big? I said, about 5 years, son. Oh no, that. I said, yeah, baby. I said take a long time, man. I said, I can show you pictures of me, man. I thought I was swole up and I ain't had nothing but a t-shirt. Oh no. No. But he has my oldest son, but he is big now. But it is taking him about 5 years to get his size on. But
had a lot right there. He was talking about how even with the bodies, women don't want to go work out. I'm about to go to this doctor.
Suck it out. Even though it's going to put my life in danger. I'm gonna die. I just watched the red thing the other day. And they were showing all these people from Florida, these ladies, and they said they can't even get in a wheelchair because all these ladies coming from Florida with these BBLs and they don't have no.
Right.